Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm McDonald in Spunky Bottoms, across the Illinois River from Meredosia. This is a Nature Conservancy owned property, and it's a wetlands property. And with me are about 3,000 white pelicans that are traveling through this area. We're going to get some shots of them while we're here. But that's not the purpose of this story. The purpose of the story is to focus on, not on the birds themselves, although they're a big part of the story, but on a young man here who has been very successful at documenting bird sightings. And Colin, I hate to take you away from your favorite thing to do, but let me ask you a few questions, okay? What were you seeing?
Like pelicans and gulls and shorebirds.
And shorebirds,
yeah.
Huh? Okay. Colin Dobson, I mentioned 12 years old.
Yeah.
You came to my attention because I know a birder named Pat Ward, who
yeah.
I've done a number of stories with, and he's a heck of a birder, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's from the Jacksonville area, and he called me and said, there's this 12-year-old boy who will knock your socks off. And anybody who does birding is going to be amazed at what you've accomplished. What have you done this year?
Well, I've probably seen the most species of birds this year so far in Illinois, more than anybody else.
Even adults?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How many species of birds?
315.
Out of how many?
Like 350 or so.
There's only like 350 known species, and you've seen 315?
More like 400 and so.
400?
Yeah.
Okay, but you've seen 315 of them?
Yeah.
So that puts you like right at the top, right?
Yeah.
No big deal, right?
Yeah.
When was the last remarkable or unusual sighting that you had?
On Monday, we went up to Havana and we had a little gull.
A what?
A little gull?
A little...
Gull.
Gull.
Yeah.
A little gull?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that doesn't sound remarkable, but it is, huh?
Yeah.
Why, are they just very few of them?
They never, like, come through here. They never see them around. There's, not that many of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they never see them in the U.S. that much.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're at about 315.
Yeah.
Before the end of the year, what's your goal? Do you have a goal before the end of the year?
Maybe 320, maybe 330.
Mm-hmm. They get harder and harder
yeah.
to spot, don't they? What happens when winter sets in? Does it just shut down, or do you look for different kinds of birds?
We look for different kinds.
Mm-hmm. Is this really a good area? Like you live in Jacksonville,
yeah.
and you go to, is it Our Savior Lutheran School that you go
yeah.
to? Yeah, okay. And you're 12 years old.
Yeah.
You can't drive.
No.
How do you get around to see all these birds?
Tony and Grandma and Dad.
Oh, friends and
yeah.
family, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And actually, they probably like taking you because they're birders too, right?
Yeah.
And without you, they wouldn't have nearly as many sightings, would they?
No.
What's the secret?
Just looking at, just watching them, I guess. I don't know.
You just look.
Yeah.
You just keep your eyes open, and,
yeah.
and you can. But you must have had to study them to know what it is you're seeing, right?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
We look through books, and we just study what kind they are, and.
Mm-hmm. You'll show us later in the program how you document your sightings.
Yeah.
But as we look out, I want to see some of these birds that we're looking at. Let's point out right out here. That's sort of where you were looking, or were
yeah.
you looking over here? Where were you looking? Right in between the big flocks?
Yeah.
What are we seeing out there?
Gulls, ducks, and shorebirds.
Gulls, ducks, and shorebirds.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you be more specific? What are the big white ones?
Pelicans.
Oh, those are the white pelicans.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are the smaller white ones?
Those are ring-billed gulls.
Gulls. Okay. You see any new gulls today, or just the same old gulls?
Just the same.
Okay. Have you seen anything today that's in any way unusual?
Wilson's phalarope.
Wilson's
phalarope.
Phalarope?
Phalarope.
Okay, phalarope. Okay. But you've already seen those before.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Are you hopeful for spotting anything new today?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
Like, what are you looking for specifically?
Redneck phalarope.
Redneck?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, we're going to catch up with you a little later in the program. Why don't you go ahead and spot in on something and tell me if you see anything unusual. Go ahead and spot something for me. Anything new?
No.
No? Same old stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll check back with you in a little bit. Well, Pat Ward, we're looking at a kind of a strange behavior here that these white pelicans perform. All of a sudden, a number of them just start circling and get higher and higher and higher. What are they doing?
That's a good question. They'll wait for a little bit of a thermal and they'll start floating up high. They're a very heavy bird, one of the heaviest flying birds, wingspread of 9, 10 feet.
Wow.
And, you know, we hate to say birds just like eat up and play around, but it looks to me like that's what they're doing.
They're just having fun,
They're
right?
obviously not feeding because they eat fish, and they don't do it by diving after the fish. They do it by hurting the fish. So these guys will just float up, and we'll see them do this, and they'll all kind of float around together. Maybe they're getting their exercise. I don't know.
You know, this is a very interesting phenomenon because it only started maybe, what, half dozen years ago that we started seeing large numbers of white pelicans in this area?
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago that if there was a white pelican on what we called the hotline, somebody found one, then we'd drive for miles around to see a white pelican. And now things have changed a lot, maybe related to the Asian carp and all the young carp they can devour. But they've changed their migration pattern. They used to migrate farther west. Now they're here right down the Illinois River Valley. And you have to wonder who told them that all this food was here, you know, how they managed to change their migration patterns. It'd be an interesting study for somebody to figure that out.
So where are they hoping to end up?
Well, these guys will end up probably clear down in Texas and on the Gulf Coast for the winter. They probably nested somewhere up in the Dakotas on some of those big lakes that have big islands. They'll nest out on the islands. They're hoping, I don't know if they've done it yet, that they'll start nesting actually in Illinois on some of the islands in the Illinois River. But I'm not sure that's happened yet.
Yeah, but we've seen that kind of thing happen. For instance, we have bald eagles that are nesting here now.
Yeah, we do. Again, a good food supply, the Asian carp, among other things. And when I wasn't as young as Colin when I started birding. I was clear up to 16, so it was only 50 years ago. There was 1 or 2 eagle nests in Illinois, and they were clear down at Crab Orchard Park down southern Illinois.
Yeah.
Now, I think they've said every county in Illinois has at least 1 eagle nest in it. And here in Morgan County, we've got several eagle nests over in the Meredosia area.
Now, let's take a look out to this group of pelicans. Now, they have an interesting way of feeding too. You know, we all see brown pelicans in the ocean, and they get up high, and then they just dive and make a big splash, you know, and they fish that way. These guys don't do that, do they?
No, they kind of work as a community group. They'll kind of come along in a big long line and slowly encircle some fish and drive them all in together, and then stick those big pouches into the water, open them very quickly. Water pours into the pouch with some fish, hopefully, and then the water drains out, and down the hatch goes the fish. I don't think any of these are feeding right now. They're just kind of loafing. They've probably had very easy hunting because the water's so low, the fish are congregated.
Yeah, they can't miss them.
No.
That's probably why they like it here.
Yeah, they could stay quite a while. Right up
this is a wetlands area, and as long as it doesn't rain here, this gets drier and drier and drier, and the fish get closer and closer to the surface.
Yep, and they've got an extra supply of fish because of the floods this spring.
Under normal circumstances, how long will these guys be around?
We've actually seen them on our Christmas counts, which are December 14th, and that's unusual, and it's probably a bird that wasn't very healthy to make the migration.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're gone in November, December, January, February. You might get one trickling back. By March, they're coming back up already.
Is there anything unusual that we've seen out here today that I missed?
Well, far out for photographs, but the golden plover's pretty unusual. That's a bird that migrates thousands of miles, clear up the Arctic and then clear down to southern South America. And their migration in the spring is through this area, but usually in the fall the migration's out over the coast. Oh, Colin's got a white rump sandpiper, very good. And that's a good migrant. But they travel south usually on the coastal reverse migration. But Colin spotted one as soon as we got here. There's golden plover out there, which is a little unusual for this time of year. So some of the birds can be unusual because of the time of year. Some of them are unusual because of the rarity. So there's some variations there.
Ken, before I ask you about Colin, I need to make a correction. He goes to Our Savior Catholic School in Jacksonville, right?
Yes, he attends Our Savior Catholic School in Jacksonville.
And they're very proud of him, so we want to make sure that people know where he goes to school. When did it become apparent to you that he would be gifted in this birding?
3 or 4 years ago, and I remember the day, our friend Tony Ward is an avid birder, and I can remember 3 or 4 years ago stopping by Tony's house to fix a computer, not fix a computer, he was having a problem with the computer, and all of a sudden, Tony has a good backyard birding area, and Colin was 8, maybe, it might have been longer than 3 years, but all of a sudden, Colin started counting and talking about all the birds in the backyard, and it just, that was the day. And then he came home wanting to learn about birds, get a birding book, and then he would sit and go through the book of all the different species over and over and over. And then there was an iTunes app where they played the bird songs or a game or something like that, and suddenly he was able to identify all of the birds by sound, and then it was pretty, and then it was pretty obvious. And then he started to go around birding with my mother and Tony and others and myself a little, taking him. And then he discovered what I'll call the bird count. I don't know what it's officially called, but the idea of counting birds throughout your year in the state and wherever. And then it progressed to when we went on vacations. We were birding along beaches in Florida, and so it just...
You're like a soccer parent,
yes,
where you do your trailing based on where the sport's going on, right?
We do a lot of that. Fortunately, my mother and her friend Tony do the vast majority of the traveling work for us, but certainly there's plenty of times where he's wanting to come here to Meredosia or make a quick trip to Havana, or even just going by a lake in Jacksonville or a certain area when it rains, where he's looking for particular birds, and sitting in the car with the window rolled down and the scope on the passenger side while he scans and scans. And Dad, shut off the car. Dad, get off the phone.
He must have a remarkable memory.
He does, and there's something about the ability to just identify a bird. I'm not a birder. I've grown to appreciate it a little bit over the last few years, and I think it's neat. But he really does have an ability to see a picture, know what's unique about a bird, and be able to identify it really easy. And
he must have really good eyes too, because he's looking around. He's not always looking through that glass. He's kind of spotting things, and there's, hey, I think I see something that, that I haven't seen before. He can bang, identify.
He is quick to identify a bird. I think he knows what to look for. He also knows wherever he's going what he might expect, and can, I think, come with an idea of what he's looking for.
Right. Well, he knows the habitat, and he knows what might be there, and so he's expecting. He's expecting stuff.
Yes. And 6 or 7 years ago, we had the same. I don't want to call this an obsession. This is a hobby, but trains were the hobby that I thought were going to occupy us through his.
Is that right? Chasing trains.
Chasing trains, and we did that every day.
Some kids never get over that. They stay train fanatics their whole life.
And suddenly the birds took over, and it is an interesting hobby, and I respect what he's accomplished with it. It's not easy, and at the same time, he. Next week goes to play in a state golf tournament, and so he does other things besides birds. But I would say that the majority of his time, not at school or not doing something else, is at least thinking about how he's going to talk one of us into taking him somewhere where he's heard there's a bird.
Someday he'll be able to drive.
Yes, yes, that will be great. He'll never be home. But the internet has made all this very easy. He has apps where I guess when he spots a bird, everybody else can see exactly where he was. When they spot a bird, so he will see on, his apps or the internet that there was a bird spotted 2 hours away, and then it's a question, I think, in his mind is, how am I going to get somebody to take me there? So,
well, good luck to him. 315 and counting, and if he gets up to 350 this year, he'll be a star.
Right. I think where he's at now is kind of a normal, and you might have to ask one of the other real birders around here, but I think it's close to where people expect to end the year in the state in past years, and so I think this is close to where he's been in the last 2 years, 310 or something like that. But he has a lot of time left this year and a couple seasons to go through. So
a lot of activity.
Think that makes for a chance of having, you know, several more, but I really don't know.
A great year.
Yes, a great year.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Colin, these white pelicans we're looking at here in Spunky Bottoms, they hang around quite a bit of the year. I guess they're not much of a thrill for somebody like you anymore to see, are they? No, you've seen a lot of them.
Yeah.
They're kind of a thrill for me because I don't get out here very often. They're big, beautiful birds. I've heard they're very heavy.
Yeah, they're huge.
They're huge, huh? Okay. I'm holding an interesting piece of paper here. This is the product of 1 day of birding for you this summer, right?
Yeah.
What do all the yellow markings and the circled birds mean?
The birds that I saw in 1 day.
In 1 day?
Yeah.
I kind of made a quick count here. There's over 100 birds here. You saw over 100 birds in 1 day. And this was in July. Which of these were a big thrill to you to see that would have been unusual?
Snowy egret, little blue hen, black vulture, and stilt sandpiper.
A black vulture?
Yeah.
Different than a turkey vulture? In what way?
The head is black, not pink.
Uh-huh.
And then when they fly, it doesn't even look like they have a tail.
Uh-huh.
So it's like so short.
It was easy for you
Yeah.
to tell the difference. Down at you had to write this one in, a stilt sandpiper. It's not even on the list.
No.
So it must be kind of rare.
Yeah.
Was that a thrill?
Kind of.
Kind of?
For the time of the year, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In the summer, you wouldn't normally see those here, huh?
No.
Okay. Now, sometimes you document these sightings. It's not just that, oh, I saw it and they're going to all take my word for it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have certain, you write down the conditions, the location, and all that kind of stuff, and it all plays into the believability of it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes you can take a picture.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
You get on the camera, and then,
So that's your iPad, huh?
yeah, mini iPad, and then you go through the scope, and then you pick what bird you want to take a picture of, and then you take a picture of it.
Okay. How many pictures have you taken so far?
A lot.
A lot? Let me see. Could you bring one up for me?
Yeah, I will. Let's see here.
One that you just took.
Oh, one I just took.
One that you just took. That's amazing what that thing will do.
Those are all the pelicans.
Uh-huh. Wow. That's terrific. They haven't always been here, have they?
No.
I mean, they're kind of newcomers, aren't they? Kind of thrilling. Sharon, we've mentioned the fact that Colin is like 3rd, 4th, or 5th in the state, including adults, at spotting birds this year.
Yes.
And that must make you very proud.
It does. It does.
What's it like? Of course, you don't follow him around, but he tells you where to go, right? And then you take him there.
Mostly, yes.
What's that like? Is it fun?
Well, it is fun, but sometimes we bird 14 hours a day. We get home and he texts, Grandma, they've seen something in Carlisle, which is 2.5 hours away. We've got to go in the morning, and that means we have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
After a 14-hour day of birding, then you got to get up at 3 in the morning the next day.
Yes.
Well, are you headed to Carlisle? Is that where you're going next, or do you have a plan?
Yes, it is.
You're going to Carlisle.
We've made plans to go for the weekend.
Okay. What are you going to see there? What do you hope to see?
We hope to see a parasitic Jaeger, and I think some kind of a gull. But I forgot exactly.
There are all kinds of gulls, aren't they?
Right.
For you and me, we look at a gull and say, "Oh, there's a seagull."
Yeah.
But for a birder, that's a different thing.
It's a whole different thing. Yeah. We was there a couple weeks ago looking for a long-tailed Jaeger, and happened to be lucky enough to see it.
And so you've learned a little bit in these last 3 years, haven't you?
Just a little.
Yeah. Do you find yourself going through the bird books and saying,
Yes,
"Well,
I do.
you know," because you want to share that, or you might be the one that sees it.
You know, sometimes I am, and they're like, "Oh, it can't be that.
Yeah, Grandma, it can't be that. Your eyes aren't any good anymore.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're right, I'll bet.
Yes, I
Yeah.
am.
And have you ever led him to one that he wouldn't have seen otherwise?
Probably not, because he can just pick them out.
Mm-hmm.
He can just pick them out, and it's pretty amazing. He'll just call. We was in Meredosia a couple of years ago, and he saw this bird about that far away. And it's like, I know it is. And I called Tony, and he said, oh, it can't be that.
Mm-hmm.
Several people come from Chicago, and by golly, it was.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty
He made
fun.
believers of them, didn't he? Yeah.
He did. And it's pretty fun when he does call one right, and other people come to see it, and he was right.
Yeah, very. I mean, it's a sort of a gift that probably not too many people have.
It's amazing
Yeah,
that he can.
but it takes a lot of study. I mean, he's had to study up because the characteristics and the colors and the shapes of these birds, they don't come to you naturally. I mean, you need to know that going in.
I can look at it today and forget, and he'll say, remember we saw that, and it's like, we did? And he can remember the day, the time, the year, but he doesn't remember he has homework.
This is his homework. But then he's got, I mean, kids today really have sort of an advantage. They know how to use these iPads and computers. They log everything, and he's got this master log of birds that he's seen, and he just adds it on, and there he goes.
Yes.
He's got a built-in database.
Yes.
That's terrific.
Yes.
And you get a chance to see the world.
I do, and spend a lot of time with him.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the nice thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I
And
just
that-
have to make time for his sister.
Yeah, she doesn't want to come along.
No.
Oh,
So-
man, what do you do after 14 hours with Colin? How do you justify that
Well, I
with
just
Sis?
make a special day, and we do what she wants to do. And that's pretty fun, too.
Yeah.
But we've spent a lot of time together in the last 4 years that really, lots of grandparents probably don't get to do that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I'm
Yeah.
just really lucky.
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Tony Ward, you helped bring Colin along.
Yes, yes, I have.
About 3 years ago, he wanted to start doing this, and you've been a birder most of your life.
Yes, I have.
And so you get a chance to sort of like share your experiences with him and help him get started.
Yes,
Been fun?
it's been a blast. He started about several years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, as his dad said, when he came over to my house, and he kind of got interested. So as we bird on the different Christmas bird counts and the spring bird counts, we'd always call him up and see if he could go along, and he really liked it. So then we got his first pair of binoculars. It's been all over ever since.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And of course, you go on birding expeditions with Pat Ward, and so you get a chance to travel around looking for birds, and even you probably get outdone by this kid, huh?
Yes, yeah, the young eyes are outdoing the old eyes now.
You know, I have a question for you that we haven't really addressed. We keep talking about this bird count and documents. How do you document the birds you've seen, and what body in Illinois keeps track of all this stuff?
Well, the Illinois Records Committee, Ornithological Committee, if you see something that's you shouldn't be seeing, if it's rare for the area, rare for the time, then you have to document it. And most of the time they'd like to have a picture. So we've been Colin's been doing very good taking pictures through the scope, and we send those in. But if we don't get a picture, then we have to document in writing, like the time and the time of day, and try to do a sketch or what field marks we saw, and then we send that in.
Mm-hmm. And for the most part, if it's not outrageous, if it doesn't seem out of line to the committee, if you have a witness, et cetera, they'll accept that kind of thing as a sighting.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, usually they will.
Yeah, and I think I said that there are only like 3 or 4 people in the state who have sighted more birds this year than Colin.
Probably so. I mean, they kind of have, it's kind of an inner competition, and different people are doing different things. Now they're counting birds by the counties, but luckily we're not quite into the birds per county now.
Yeah.
We're just doing it statewide. So.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to thank you and everybody else who helped us out here. And gee, we got Colin out of school for this, and it was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
But we'll get to bird the rest of the day too, probably.
Right.
So,
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You know, this bird count is interesting. It gets kids, the competition gets kids interested, and if that's all it does, that's enough in itself to get them started on a hobby and a science that might be to stick with them the rest of their life. I don't know about you, but I'm going to be rooting for Colin as he goes toward that 400 mark. He's getting pretty close. With another Illinois story near Meredosia at Spunky Bottoms, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.